All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. So, as usual, we're going to start off with some announcements, then we'll have our recommended reading, followed by our affirmation of the day. We'll have an opportunity for people to introduce themselves or share any victories or celebrations from the past week. Then we'll listen to our audiobook excerpt from my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. We're still on chapter 6 tonight. Come back, do our topic discussion, take a break at about 8:15. Come back and work on our assignment, do any questions and answers, and then wrap it up by 9 o'clock. Reminder that today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, first edition. Author-signed paperbacks are going fast. Only have a couple left. Use the discount code WORKSHOP20 at checkout at BeBiggerToday.com/book to save 20%. And I will personally sign this to you or whoever you want me to. And it does come with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, you just let me know. I'll send you your money back, but I know you're going to love it. While you're there, check out my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. It is the penultimate collection of New York City photographs, the skyline and all the great landmarks that make the Big Apple so wonderful. What I love about this book is that each of the 7 different photographers have their own unique take on the New York City skyline and landmarks. So check it out at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore, on sale for $16.95, and I'll sign that for you as well. And the audiobook for Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, second edition. This is still available for pre-order at $9.99. It is actually 595 minutes. Which is almost 5 minutes shy of 10 hours. It comes with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, you'll get your money back. I do anticipate having this available by the 1st of June, if not sooner. And you can get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. And while you're there, check out some hats and t-shirts, BeBiggerToday.com/merch. Use the discount code MERCH20 at checkout to save 20%. Also, check out my original art and photography, also on my website at BeBiggerToday.com/art-photography. My original landscape, seascape, or cityscape and abstract images professionally framed and signed by me, just for you. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. Those are really, really nice, guys. So check them out. And while you're there, also my New York City souvenir collection, refrigerator magnets. These are my original photos on high-quality refrigerator magnets. We have a collection of 11 different shots by yours truly. Again, these are available on my website at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And I'm available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. If you're a creative person, a writer, photographer, artist, or if you have a company or work for a company and you'd like me to come in and speak to your management team or your sales team on how they can be bigger than they think they are, reach out to me through the website at BeBiggerToday.com and we'll set it up. Finally, I'm accepting donations. I'm looking for support to continue to offer this workshop at no charge. and keep it open to everyone. A suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. You can send your contribution to me at paypal.me/Peter Alessandria. That's all one word, and thank you so much for your support. All right, so let us jump into the workshop with our recommended reading. Tonight's recommended reading, Miracle of Love, the Life and Words of Neem Karoli Baba, written by Ram Dass. This book was published in 1979 and is available in many different places, including the Ram Dass website at ramdass.org. Now, this is really a wonderful book. You may remember a few months ago, my recommended reading was Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. And this book is similar in a lot of respects. This book is a first-person account. It was written by Ram Dass. Actually, let me back up. So Ram Dass, his original name was Richard Alpert. Richard Alpert was associated with Timothy Leary, and Richard Alpert and Timothy Leary were at Harvard University in the 1960s. And they were experimenting with consciousness expanding drugs like LSD. And they were very into pushing the frontiers of human consciousness and psychology and all of that. They both eventually got kicked out of Harvard. But Ram Dass Richard Alpert went to India to study spirituality. And he hooked up with Neem Karoli Baba and became a disciple of his, a devotee, and spent many, many years in India studying spirituality under Neem Karoli Baba. And so over the course of those many years, I think it was close to 20 years, maybe 15 years, he got to see firsthand how an Indian guru, or some would call him an avatar, a highly evolved spiritual being, how he lived. And Neem Karoli Baba was known throughout India as one of the great sages and prophets, one of the great Indian gurus. And what I love about this book is Ram Dass describes, it's a first-person account of many of the miracles that Neem Karoli Baba performed while Ram Dass was there, including predicting the future, including healing people with illnesses, including being in two places at one time, leaving his body and then coming back and just kind of appearing in places, all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Now, you say what you will about it, and I guess not everybody is going to believe that all of that happened. I'm a believer. And this kind of falls into line with the other things that I've been studying over the years, including A Course in Miracles, including Autobiography of a Yogi, and many other spiritual books. I'm going to talk a lot more about those in my next book. But I wanted to offer this to you guys now. It really is, it's a beautiful, it wasn't just that this guy was really cool at performing miracles. You know, he said the basis of everything that we do is love. Love and loving service, being of service to others. And he lived that. You know, he actually lived that throughout his life. And many say he was several hundred years old when he finally made his transition. And he was very lighthearted about things. He was always laughing and doing practical jokes. So it's a very lighthearted, loving, miraculous portrayal of spirit here on the physical plane. So, Miracle of Love, The Life and Words of Neem Karoli Baba, written by Ram Dass. Ram Dass has actually many other books, including Be Here Now, which he's probably most well known for. I'll be talking about that book in a future workshop. He passed away, I think this book was published in 1979. Ram Dass passed away in 2019, I think. But there is a website dedicated to his memory and his work, which is ramdas.org. So check it out. Today's affirmation of the day: I know exactly what to do and when to do it. Now, this is really one of my favorite affirmations because for most of my life I was mired in the fear that I didn't know what to do, and I certainly didn't know when to do it. And it created a lot of anxiety and stress in me. Remember, our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and actions, and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in life. So if I'm starting with stressful thoughts, anxious thoughts, thoughts of powerlessness and I'm not going to be okay, then I'm going to have feelings that reflect those thoughts, and then I'm going to speak words and take actions that reflect those feelings, and then I'm going to experience outcomes that reflect those words and actions. So I know exactly what to do and when to do it. Again, these affirmations are our way of altering our emotional state. It's a way to consciously redirect our thinking in a more positive direction. They may or may not work miracles in your life, but at least we enter those challenging situations with a more positive, more life-affirming frame of mind, and in my experience, that produces better results. I always feel better when I say this affirmation to myself. And I've alluded to this to you guys in the past. I'm actually working on a recording. I'm calling these affirmation meditations. They're about 15 minutes of affirmations that I'm recording in my voice, and I'm putting music underneath them. And eventually I'll be sharing them with you guys. But there's something that I've been using now. It takes affirmations to the next level. So it's got really cool music. The affirmations are stated in a very powerful, positive way. And I'm using a technique that was developed in the 1960s, I think, where you hear two different voices in each ear. So I'm playing with, it sounds like there's two people talking. Obviously, it's one voice, one person, but saying two different things at the same time in different ears, which is a very powerful way to reprogram the subconscious mind. So I'm hopefully going to have those available for you guys to download the next couple of weeks. I'm still working on those, but soon. So I know exactly what to do and when to do it, and you guys know what's coming next. You know exactly what to do. This is a chance for people to introduce themselves or share any victories from the past week. So if you would like to do that, this is your opportunity. Just unmute your microphone and jump right in.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. It's Dee Dee. So glad to be here. Thank you for posting the podcast. I listened to the podcast on your website. Really well done. I did go to a workshop today and was with a prayer partner and mentioned your work, and she's powerful in the psychological medicine world, and I hope she joins us at one point in time. I'm just really glad to be here. I think there was some other victory. I know that I tagged a couple of people who come regularly and hope they join us soon. And just glad to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dee Dee. Thanks for saying hi. I have actually have two more podcasts that are available. I'm going to be posting those very soon, and I'm doing two more next week. So getting the word out there, guys. Putting it out there. Who else wants to say hi or share a victory?
Hi, Peter. It's Barbara.
Hello.
Hello. Like I said, I've been just doing the day-to-day thing, but I will admit that I'm constantly being aware, as I said, of things to do or things to say. And, they pop up every once in a while. I was talking to my granddaughter yesterday. I called her and said, how you doing? And, I could tell something was wrong. So she said, oh, I'm just having a bad day, Grandma. And it was like, what's the matter? I'm just stressed over, some kind of project she had to do. So right away it was like, and this is how I really feel. I really want to give her just positive, I guess you could say, affirmations. But at 15, they don't want to hear it. So right away it just came into me, and it's like, okay, breathe, think positive, and just keep on saying to yourself, you've got this, you can do this. And I could tell it changed a little bit. And she went, thank you, Grandma. And she hung up. But it's really, it's nice. It's right there when you need it. So, and I've had a few other instances like that when something comes up right away. I'm like, whatever we talk about comes into my head. So that means all the bad stuff doesn't come into my head. So I guess that's
There
a
you
good
go.
thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, guys. We're going to think something anyway, right? We're constantly thinking. So it may as well be something positive. It may as well be something deliberate and intentional on our part, and look, it can't make things worse for many of us, and it can only make things better. And so why not? Why not do it? That's great, Barb.
Okay,
And
thanks.
I love that it's becoming kind of automatic.
Right. I guess that's what I meant to say. And that's how I feel. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really a big deal. I noticed that in myself. So when, in the past, when an event would trigger me, or, a person would trigger me or whatever, and in that, there's like a split second, there's like this little time lag, and a new thought would pop into my head, a positive thought, a positive, even if it's okay, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but I know I am going to handle this. Or I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but it's going to be okay. Or, positive affirmation, like, I got this, I can handle this, I can do this. This is going to be okay. I'm not who I think I am. I'm capable of a lot more than I think I am, something like that.
Right. And that, we wish we would have gotten that as we were growing up, and everybody, I'm sure, or it is. But, I just love the fact that I can, I'm aware and that want to do that for her. It certainly can't hurt.
Yeah, it can't hurt. And I would say the best thing that we can do is model it for other people.
Yeah.
So in the moment, when you're around her, because I know you're around her from time to time, you can say, out loud to yourself, in the past, when you would have said something negative, you could just say something positive, like, I got this, or I can handle this, or you could say to her, I believe in you. I believe in you. I know that you're going to figure this out. Just little things like that, just little positive affirmations.
Right. Instead of, usually the drippy grandma stuff, oh, I love you, right. That's what I'm noticing. It's nicer to just kind of be a little more positive and direct.
Well, look, the drippy grandma stuff is good too. I mean, because that's conveying to another person that you love and care about them, and that's always good.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, when you're challenged and she's present, if you invoke this stuff in the moment, she'll catch on to that. She'll see that.
Yeah.
People notice.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think people, especially kids, they pick up on what the adults are doing, and here's the good news and the bad news. It becomes kind of like a subconscious programming, because when you hear it over and over again, I see it in myself, when I look at the origin of things that bounce around in my head all day, I can almost trace it back to when I was a little kid and my mother or my father were walking around the house saying something very similar. It's like we're little tape recorders, and we pick up and then we play those tapes back over and over again for the rest of our lives without realizing that we're playing a tape of somebody else's thoughts.
Right. And then I had the other challenge Jennifer was talking to me about, Richie, he's 12. And she goes, he must be going through something, because all he is he's always angry. And I felt like that was another bing moment, So, there's only so much she's going to listen to. But I remember saying something like, okay, well, talk to him about his anger, validate him. Oh, he doesn't need to be validated. And then I said, well, try something. Try, when you say something to him, have him repeat it. Something positive, have him repeat it. I said, it can't hurt. And I think she listened to that. I think she listened to that. And it's very gratifying to know that you can help it's harder to help adults, but I think it could be a little easier to help littler people.
All right, good. Well, that's actually a really good lead into our topic for tonight. We're going to be
Yes, I
talking
did.
about we're going to be talking more about anger. If you weren't here last week, please go watch the video from last week. But we're going to continue our discussion of anger tonight. And in particular, I think, for me personally, I think this is one of the most important workshops that we'll do in this go around. The topic, the stuff that we discussed tonight, at least for me. And in particular, we're going to look at the relationship between fear and anger, because there is a very important relationship there.
Mhm.
So great. Thanks, Barb.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to say hi or share a victory? All right. So let's carry on. So as I said, we're still working on chapter 6. Would you rather be right or happy? At least 2 more weeks, I think, on this chapter. So what I'm going to do now, as usual, I'm going to play the audiobook excerpt. It's about 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we will jump into our discussion for tonight. Mad Men and Women. As I mentioned earlier, for many of us, anger is a primary way we seek to take care of ourselves and our relationships with others. It's an attempt to set a boundary when we feel threatened. We're in effect saying, stop, that's not okay. But look at the dictionary definition of the word anger: a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. This means the message behind our anger is usually, I hate you, rather than, I love you. For me, I'm trying to learn that I can say, stop, that's not okay, without having to rely on anger. I'm learning how to communicate directly, even forcefully, without annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. This means it's possible to take care of myself without attacking or making the other person wrong. It is true that at certain times and in certain situations, we may need to quickly and or forcefully grab someone else's attention. This tends to happen a lot with young kids, since they don't readily understand when they're putting themselves or others in danger. Yet what many people don't realize is that anger is about much more than just raising our voice. Our angry communications are often laced with hatred, contempt, or disdain. Thus, when we engage someone with anger, we've usually gone far beyond just attempting to get their attention. We may be trying, perhaps without being aware of it, to get even by using our words or actions to inflict harm or injury upon them. This can be especially problematic with kids since, as I just mentioned, they often don't appreciate the problems they're causing. To them, they're just playing or doing something else, and all of a sudden they're being attacked for no reason. Thus, in the face of an adult's unexpected and or unrestrained outburst, the child can be left feeling confused, powerless, and hurt. If this happens often enough, these emotions may become a big part of who the child thinks they are. They may also eventually take on their parents' rage to the point that it becomes a part of the child's own personality. Keeping our cool extends beyond interacting with our children. For instance, many of us can take our frustrations out on people we don't even know. Road rage, aggressive driving, and battles over parking spots at the mall are a few of the more common examples. Many of us also feel some level of threat or vulnerability with anyone we perceive as having power over us. This is why people sometimes resent landlords, bosses, large corporations, or other authority figures such as the government, military, or police. To react to any situation with anger means we perceive ourselves as weak, threatened, vulnerable, and/or powerless. Thus, by changing how we see ourselves, we can deal more effectively with other drivers, our fellow shoppers, the local meter maids, and anyone else we perceive as having power over us. Now again, this may all be relatively simple, but it's definitely not easy. The anger pill can be a difficult habit to break. In particular, I find that I'm sometimes really challenged by the kids in my life. They're wonderful and adorable, and I'm blessed to be part of their family. And there are times I just lose it. I feel so powerless that all I can do is react. But I'm more conscious than ever when I do that, and I also try to forgive myself quickly and then apologize to them when I can. Overcoming angry reactions is one of the steepest hills many of us will have to climb. Yet if our goal is to be more effective in how we deal with life, then we're going to have to try as much as possible to respond rather than react. I can also say that, little by little, as I've begun to see myself differently, I don't need to rely so heavily on anger to take care of myself. And the roads and parking lots of New Jersey are a safer place as a result. The desire to feel better. In the last chapter, we said everything we do is motivated by a desire to feel better. For many of us, lashing out in anger is an attempt to feel powerful, i.e. better, in a situation where we feel powerless. Recall my definition of fear from chapter 4. We said it's an emotional response to a perception of ourselves as powerless in a given situation. Thus, like fear, anger is born out of an idea about ourselves which says we're not going to be okay. This is really important since it means that if we're lashing out in anger, we're really lashing out because we're afraid. Which brings us to another important point. Fear always precedes anger. In my experience, beneath all feelings of anger are actually feelings of fear. Why is this so significant? If the problem when I'm angry is I'm really afraid, I'm probably better served to look at the source of my fear rather than why I think I'm angry. Anger usually keeps the focus on the other person, whereas fear can be more introspective. In either case, it's more likely I'll see a solution if I'm looking within myself rather than directing my attention outward. In addition, expressing fear is usually more conducive to opening lines of communication between people. We previously said defensiveness begets defensiveness. The same is true of anger. If anger is about blaming someone else for how we feel, the natural response of the other person is to either shut down or fight back. Either party shutting down or fighting back limits communication. Expressing fear, on the other hand, can be much less threatening. When we communicate that we're afraid, we're usually not blaming or accusing the other person, so their defenses don't get triggered and they're much more likely to listen. As an example, let's say your teenage daughter has an accident while using the family car on her way to a party. Like any parent, the news of an accident involving one of your children is bound to be quite upsetting. Your initial response is one of concern, i.e. fear, regarding her well-being. While she may be shaken up, it's likely your daughter will interpret your concern as an expression of your love for her. Yet once you find out she's okay and learn that it was her carelessness that caused the accident, you may end up having a different reaction. At some point, it's possible that your anger about her carelessness would supersede your concern. You may even yell or scream at her for being so stupid. Now your daughter shuts down, feeling like she's being attacked. Frustrated with your child's lack of response, you unleash even more anger and threaten punishment in the form of grounding and/or loss of driving privileges. Over the next few days, you calm down. Because you're reading this damn book, you realize that maybe you could have handled things better. You now understand that when you're lashing out in anger, you're really lashing out because you're afraid. Looking inside yourself rather than out, you see that your anger sprang from the fact that you were actually terrified your daughter might have been injured or killed. In a moment of clarity, you realize that it was this fear that was behind your anger. You talk it over with your spouse, and she urges you to have another conversation with your daughter. Your wife implores you to tell the truth about what was so upsetting to you, the fact that you were afraid of losing someone you loved, rather than dancing around the issue by repeating, albeit in a nicer tone, how important it is to pay attention while driving. So you set up a time to discuss things with your daughter. She's understandably reluctant to meet, still feeling guilty about the problems she caused. Also, given your past track record in situations like this, she expects another tongue lashing for her misdeeds. When you finally sit down together, your initial instinct is to lecture her further on why it's so important to pay attention while driving. Yet out of the corner of your eye, you see your wife watching you. Brought back to the purpose of your talk by your wife's look, you hesitate, not sure what to say. Your daughter, head hung low, briefly brings her eyes up to meet your own. She's somewhat confused as you're uncharacteristically at a loss for words. Eventually, you start speaking. Listen, honey, I'm sorry about the way I reacted the other night. Your daughter, continuing to look down, listens. I was, worried. You glance quickly at your spouse and then rephrase it. I mean afraid. I was afraid something awful had happened. A moment passes. Your daughter lifts her head. Your eyes meet. There's a longer pause and a tear wells up in your right eye. You continue with a somewhat unsteady voice. I thought maybe you had been hurt, or maybe even... Your voice trails off. You can't finish the sentence. Your daughter stares at you intently. You let out a small sob, but no more words come. Suddenly you break down, crying. Your daughter stares, transfixed. She's never seen this side of you before. Eventually, choking back the sobs, you say, I don't know what I would do if something bad had happened to you. I'm so sorry for yelling. At this point, your daughter's surprise gives way to her own tears. She apologizes for being so careless. You hold your finger to your lips, indicating she doesn't need to say anything else. You reach forward and embrace her. She falls into your arms. You both weep together. Years of tension, hurt feelings, and misunderstandings are suddenly released. Eventually, a sense of peace descends upon both of you. Over her shoulder, you can see your spouse is also crying. It's a healing moment for all three of you. This story illustrates the difference between being honest about being afraid versus hiding our fear behind our anger. Which do you think is more effective, and which is closer to the truth? If you're reading this book and have had a similar experience with someone in your own life, I urge you to revisit what may have been behind your angry reactions. If it turns out it was fear, I promise it's never too late to go back and admit the truth. Having a discussion like this with someone you love can heal wounds and mend relationships that seemingly have been lost for years. All right, so that's the audiobook for tonight, the audiobook excerpt. So, it's my belief that this is a really important topic for a lot of people. It's important for me, talking about the relationship between fear and anger. And, so the first thing I want to say, and again, I said this last week, I'm going to say it again, it's okay to be angry. All right? I don't want anybody to feel, I don't want me to feel, I don't want other people to feel that they're bad or wrong when they experience anger. There are some people who will tell you anger is a natural emotion. And, to a certain extent, I believe that's true. But either way, I don't, it's like this is not to feel bad when we express anger. If we've expressed anger in the past, that's hurt ourselves or somebody else. None of this is about making anybody wrong for experiencing any of their emotions, including anger. Now, another thing I say a lot, which I actually didn't say in the book, but I'm going to say it now, is, there's nothing, the emotions are not the problem, all right? Anger in and of itself, feeling angry is not the problem. The problem is when we make choices and decisions based on those emotions, those negative emotions. And this is kind of what I've been harping on from the beginning, since our thoughts lead to our feelings and our feelings lead to our words and actions, if we have negative feelings, we are going to express negative words and actions, and that's when we hurt ourselves, that's when we hurt other people. That's when we do the damage. So feeling angry is not the problem. Feeling sad is not the problem. Feeling depressed is not the problem. Feeling envious is not the problem. Feeling jealous is not the problem. To a certain extent, those are all natural emotions. The problem is when we make choices and decisions based on those negative feelings. All right? So it's okay to feel the feelings and to express them in a healthy, positive way. But the problem comes not from having the feelings. The problem comes from making choices and decisions based on those feelings. So that's what we want to be on the lookout for. All right? So it's one thing to experience a feeling. It's another thing to act on that feeling. It's another thing to make a choice or decision based on that particular feeling. All right? So we want to be conscious of that. And again, we're not bad or wrong if we feel anger, if we express anger. We're going to talk, I mentioned from day one the importance of forgiveness. And I've had many opportunities to forgive myself for expressing my negative emotions in a not so healthy way. So we'll have an opportunity to forgive ourselves for those times when we have been, less than enlightened or perfect in the way we express our emotions. But what I want to say up front is, so we're not bad or wrong for feeling angry or any of our other feelings. Second thing I want to say is we want to be on the lookout for when we make choices or decisions based on those feelings. That's when we get into trouble. All right. So let's look at our first slide. So this is from the reading. For many of us, anger is a way we seek to take care of ourselves and our relationships. It's an attempt to set a boundary when we feel powerless or threatened. We're in effect saying, stop, that's not okay. All right? So this is really important. Anger is a way that we take care of ourselves when we don't know that there's another way. It's kind of a, not kind of, I mean, it is a defense mechanism, but it's not a, it's an external defense mechanism. It's a way to set a boundary. Now we're going to spend a lot of time in chapter 7 talking about boundaries and what they are and what healthy boundaries look like. For now, many of us don't have that tool in our toolkit, so we still rely on anger as a way to take care of ourselves. So if the worst thing that we're doing in our lives is we're trying to protect ourselves, it's not so bad. Now, we don't want to hurt ourselves and other people in the process, which is why I'm presenting all this material in this way at this time, because I believe there is another way to take care of ourselves that does not involve what we commonly refer to as anger, resentment, annoyance, hostility, violence. Obviously, when anger turns into physical violence, that's usually, that never turns out well, usually. But the point is, again, we're not bad people for feeling angry. In many cases, what we're just trying to do is protect ourselves, take care of ourselves, or set a boundary. Now, the problem is, we go beyond just trying to protect ourselves. If you look at the definition of the word anger, the dictionary definition, one of the main definitions is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. If I'm feeling displeasure, annoyance, displeasure, or hostility, chances are my interactions with you are not going to be positive. And maybe it's just me. I don't think so. But I find that relating to other people with annoyance, displeasure, or hostility never goes well. It certainly doesn't bring us closer together. Now again, the big problem with all of this is that, number one, we don't know that there's another way to take care of ourselves. We don't know that there's another way to react. But number two, actually there's three. So there's three problems. So we don't know that there's another way to take care of ourselves. Number two is we're still convinced that other people make us feel the way we feel. Now, I spent a lot of time, in the first 2 chapters talking about why that's not true, why nobody makes us feel anything, good or bad. So, you make me feel is a lie. It's not reality, it's not the truth. And I've talked about many times that we take information from the outside world, pass it through our internal filter of who we think we are, and then we react to that situation based on the meaning that we've given that situation, based on who we think we are, how we see ourselves. So that's as true with anger as anything else. So in my own experience, as I begin to see myself differently, as I begin to see myself as someone who can take care of himself, and as I begin to experience myself as somebody who can take care of myself in difficult situations or with difficult people, I don't have to rely on anger as much. I don't need anger to take care of myself because I see myself differently, I feel differently. Because I feel differently, I speak different words and take different actions. And then the third thing, which is probably the biggest problem or impediment, but it comes from the first two, is that we often feel justified in getting even. We often feel justified in getting back at the person who we think has harmed us. That becomes the justification for our response. And again, we don't take responsibility. We say, well, I'm doing this because of what you did to me. You started it. You did it first. It's your fault that I feel the way I feel. It's your fault that I'm doing the things that I'm doing. That is, in my book, that's not taking responsibility. That's not living an empowered life. We're not exercising. We're giving our power away is what we're doing. And we've talked a lot about what the ramifications of that are. So I want to bring to everybody's awareness, including my own, I'm here to remind myself that number one, there is another way to take care of myself that doesn't necessarily involve feeling hostility, annoyance, or displeasure and directing that outward at other people. Nobody makes me feel anything. How I'm reacting is always based on how I see myself in that situation. And as I change how I see myself, I change the way I react to the people and circumstances and situations of my life. And number three, I'm not really justified in getting even and hurting somebody because I think they hurt me. That, again, that does not foster peace, obviously. It does not foster intimacy in my relationships. It doesn't bring me closer to people. All right, so again, as I said in the audiobook tonight, you got to remember, guys, anger begets anger. When I address somebody from a place of anger, of hostility, of annoyance, of displeasure, guess what? In most cases, they're going to respond with anger. Anger begets anger. So in the heat of the moment, we often forget that. And, somehow we think we're going to, force the other person to see things our way, force them into submission. I guess occasionally that can happen. But in many cases, the thing that we're eliciting in the other person is also the emotion of anger. And as I say here, our angry communications are often laced with hatred, contempt, or disdain. It's very hard to have a peaceful interaction or resolution of a conflict when our communications are coming from a place of hatred, contempt, or disdain. By the way, I define hatred as persistent anger. So when I'm communicating, when I'm coming from an angry place, a disdainful place, a hostile place in my communications, the other person is not going to be open and receptive and, welcoming what I have to say. It's going to put up their defenses. So now they're defensive, and defensiveness is a precursor to anger. And anger leads to retaliation, revenge. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but eventually that person is going to find a way to get even. And as I said a moment ago, we may be trying, perhaps without even being aware of it, to get even by using our words or actions to inflict harm or injury upon another person. This is the domain of the ego. The ego always feels justified in attacking other people, in what it perceives as retaliation or revenge. We want to be very, very, very aware of that. Whenever I feel justified in retaliating, in attacking, in hurting somebody, I'm in my ego. All right? And I started off this chapter talking a lot about what that means. So again, if you weren't here the last couple of weeks, go back and watch those videos, those workshops. The ego is not interested in peace. The ego is not interested in conflict resolution. The ego is not interested in love. The ego is obsessed with taking things personally, feeling offended, feeling justified in attacking other people, feels superior to other people. Next week, we're going to talk all about judgment. Another one of my favorite topics, judgment. That's wholly the domain of the ego. So all these negative personality traits, negative characteristics that we have are rooted in our egoic thinking, our egoic mind. So I just want you guys to be aware, and I want me to be aware, that whenever we feel justified in retaliating, in attacking another person, in getting revenge, in getting even, we're in our ego, and that never, in my life, maybe it's different for you guys, but in my life that never ends well. And it certainly doesn't promote peace, and it doesn't bring me closer to other people. All right, so remember, anger begets anger. You know, and the other thing that the ego does, and I talk about this more in the next chapter, you know, because when I'm in my egoic mind, okay, the ego always thinks it's right. Remember, the title of this chapter is Would You Rather Be Right or Happy? We're going to talk about exactly what that means in the next week or two. But the ego always thinks it's right, which means it always thinks the other person is wrong. The other person, race, or nation is wrong. And I had this experience, I'm going to talk about this more in chapter 7, but because we think we're so right and because we're so certain that we're right and they're wrong, that maybe if you're like me, I've had the experience where I've been surprised. I've actually been surprised when the other person responds to me with anger. It's like, isn't it obvious that I'm the victim here? And it's been shocking to me when somebody responds to me with anger, blaming me for how they feel. That's how egocentric we can be when we're in our ego. It's like I can't see the world through somebody else's eyes because I'm so certain that I'm right and they're wrong and I'm justified and they're not, that when they respond to me with anger or anything other than complete agreement and apology, I'm shocked. It's like it doesn't register. It's like it's not in my consciousness that they could actually feel that they're right and I'm wrong. Welcome to my world. All right. So I think this is the most important thing I want to convey, probably in the entire workshop series. You know, everything that we've done, this is probably one of the most important ideas for me in the entire book. And that is that fear always precedes anger. Which means that if I'm lashing out in anger, I'm really lashing out because I'm afraid. Now, this actually came to me, this was many, many, many years ago, probably like 25 years ago. I was living in Los Angeles, and if you've ever lived or visited Los Angeles, you know that the freeways there are huge. They're like 6 lanes in each direction. And so I'm coming over, if you know the 405 San Diego freeway, I'm coming over the hill from the valley back into the Los Angeles basin, and it's 6 lanes on my side and 6 lanes on the other side. And you know, people can, like anywhere, I guess, people, especially I'm imagining young people, can drive pretty crazy on the highways. And so I'm driving along, I'm all the way in the left lane, so I'm in the fast lane. And this is when I was driving my fancy BMW convertible. And I was driving along in the left lane, and I look down for a second, and I look up, and there's a car right in front of me. And that car was not there a second ago when I looked down to change the radio or whatever I was doing. But it wasn't so close. But it was definitely not there a fraction of a second earlier. And it was a little surprising, but I was okay. A moment later, another car, and then he took off. Another car came in all the way out from one of the right lanes, cut right in front of me, all right, and barely. I mean, it seemed to me like he just barely missed my car, and he cut into that lane, and then went after his buddy. I guess they were 2 kids that were chasing each other. I don't know. I was terrified. I thought, you know, my heart almost stopped because I thought he was going to hit me. And so I had this moment of really intense fear, and it was like. And then, once I realized I was okay, I got angry. I got really angry. I got so angry that I chased after these guys. Now, luckily, they were driving a lot faster and a lot more crazy than I was. But in that moment, I wanted revenge. I wanted to get them back. I was so angry. And sometime later, I kind of made the connection. It was like, oh, you know, I was really afraid. And then once I saw that I was okay, then I became angry. Now again, this may be obvious to you guys. To me, that was kind of a revelation, and I've always thought about that since. This is going on 20, 25 years, and it's always been the situation where now, if I have a moment of clarity at least, when I notice I'm angry, I always say, okay, what am I afraid of? What's the fear that's behind the anger? So, for me at least, again, maybe it's just me, but it seems to me that fear precedes anger. Now, where I want to go with this, now we're talking about how to have better relationships. We're talking about how to be more effective in our interactions with other people. Whatever the situation is, whatever the relationship is. And so what I realized when I was writing this book for the first time was when I really kind of clarified it for me, that when I express anger, the other person shuts down. As I said a moment ago, anger begets anger. They are not interested in what I have to say at that point. They're just feeling, they're feeling defensive and or angry. They're not really listening to what I have to say. So when I express anger, the other person, the natural response of the other person is to shut down. And people shutting down does not promote communication, does not promote positive relationships. And so what I realized was that if I express fear to somebody, maybe that's a better way of communicating in those moments, in those situations. And it's the truth. I'm really afraid. And the anger is just covering up that fear. So, I wrote this. It's about a year and a half ago, I think, when I first wrote this chapter in the book. And I haven't had that many, because I'm working on seeing myself differently and all of that, I haven't had many opportunities. I'm not as angry as I used to be, because I see myself differently. So the anger doesn't come up as much or as intensely as it used to. So I've had this idea in my head, but I haven't really had an opportunity to put it into practice. That wasn't until last week. So last week I had an experience that was truly one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. I mean, it was awful. It was traumatizing. It was something that happened in my living situation in the middle of the night. It involved other people, had nothing to do with me, but I heard it and it was terrible, and it scared the shit out of me. I mean, I almost had a heart attack. It was just terrifying. Being woken up in the middle of the night to something really awful happening. And for 2 days, my hands were shaking. I mean, it was really traumatizing. And I thought, I have to do something. I have to, I can't just let this go. It involved, again, my living situation. There are neighbors in my living situation. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And I felt afterwards, and for the next couple of days, I was fuming. I was so angry. It was so unfair. It was so disturbing. And, I did nothing to bring, it had nothing to do with me, but I was affected by it. And I felt that anger, I felt that rage that I haven't felt in a long time. And I thought, I didn't know what to do. And I prayed about it. And then at that exact moment, I was revising this chapter in the audiobook, and it was playing over and over in my head, that expressing fear rather than anger is more conducive to opening lines of communication between people. So what I ended up doing was writing a letter to this person, and I expressed instead of expressing anger, I expressed my fear. I expressed concern. I told them the effect that their behavior had on me, but it wasn't in an accusatory way. I didn't accuse them. I didn't make them wrong. And in fact, I said, I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for me. I'm worried. I'm worried about, what's going on with you guys, because this could have been serious. Somebody could have really been hurt. And I said, and this is the effect it had on me. I was terrified. I almost had a heart attack. It was so frightening for me. and I expressed some other things, and then I ended the letter by offering to be helpful, by suggesting that, I've done things like 12-step programs and other things that have helped me deal with issues. In a way, I was almost identifying with what they were doing, and so I offered to be helpful. So instead of attacking them, instead of making them wrong, instead of blaming them for how I felt, I told them what I heard, what I saw, and how I felt as a result of that, and the effect that their behavior had on me, without accusing them of anything, and then offering to be helpful. Can I help? Is there something I can do? Because I'm concerned for all of us, because it was a dangerous situation. I got back an apology. I got back an acknowledgement, of their part and what they did, and an apology for that. And then they did ask for help. It wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but it was, something that could potentially be helpful. And they actually asked me if I had a recommendation for somebody who could help. And I looked and I found somebody, and I suggested, I recommended that. I don't know if they're going to follow up on any of that in a way that's none of my business, but it was almost miraculous, because in the past with the same people, my interactions have been much more angry and accusatory and blaming them for how I feel. And the response has always been very negative. And again, I talk about this in chapter 7. Oh no, I talk about this in chapter 6. I have a long history of difficult relationships with neighbors. And I can see now that in many cases my part was feeling victimized, blaming them for how I feel, and then directing anger towards them, and then wondering why they don't see things my way, wondering why they're defensive, wondering why they're angry towards me. So again, maybe this is nothing new for you guys, but for me it was actually putting this into play and expressing that I was afraid rather than angry. It completely changed the result, and it changed the experience. And I'm also taking other steps to take care of myself if something like this ever happens again. So I'm doing what I need to do to take care of myself while not making somebody else wrong for their humanity and their imperfections and their issues. And, it was just so clear to me that I had a choice, and by expressing fear rather than anger, it had a whole different result. And I hope it works out for them. I hope it works out for me. But in and of itself, that was a miraculous kind of thing, to do that. So I'm speaking from experience. And again, as you heard in the audiobook tonight, if there are people, I'm just going to say this, if there are people in your life that you have had angry interactions with, where, things have been said or done that has caused that friction or lack of closeness or, estrangement. Many people and many families are estranged from their family because of angry interactions or outbursts or whatever. And again, I want to be really clear. I'm not making excuses for this other person's behavior that night. For me, it was clearly inappropriate. It was dangerous, what they were doing. So I'm not making excuses for that. I'm not justifying that. I'm not condoning that in any way. And if there are people in your life that you've had angry interactions with, if other people have a part in all those situations. So I'm not saying that they were right for what they did or anything like that. But I'm going to suggest that, at least for me, it seems that if I can have the communication from a place of, I was afraid, and that's why that was the basis of my reaction. And can I help you? Can you help me? As opposed to attacking them, making them wrong, blaming them, and all of that. it may lead to a different experience. All right, so we're going to look at our topic for tonight, our exercise for tonight. If we're lashing out in anger, we're really lashing out because we're afraid. Do you agree or disagree? And if you want to say maybe how your own life might be different if you revisited an incident or a situation where you expressed anger rather than fear, you can talk about that as well. All right, if you're new here, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to play a song. It's called Love My Life by Robbie Williams. If you're watching the replay, I can't actually play this on YouTube, but the lyrics will be on screen, and you can sing along at home, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, Love My Life by Robbie Williams. So, who would like to chime in on tonight's assignment? If we're lashing out in anger, we're really lashing out because we're afraid. Agree or disagree? Why? Or your experience dealing with anger in your own life or fear in your own life. Who wants to chime in? Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Peter. I'm sorry. It sounds like the best outcome occurred. So go you. All I can say is woohoo! I have a reoccurring anger that comes up when people start to talk when I'm talking. And it's really unfortunate for me. It's like a nervous twitch. If somebody starts talking when I'm talking, I just like escalate from 0 to 100. And I really love for that to go away. It's not very socially acceptable. And it's really interfering. It's just interfering. And I also want to teach people how to treat me. So I really want to have a skillful, loving way to say, excuse me, please let me finish my sentence, or whatever it is, whatever it is I need to do. But I will listen to hear what you have to say about that. And yes, I agree. The fear is, always first, and I can usually trace it back. And sometimes I can't trace it back immediately, but I can usually trace it back to fear past.
All right, great. So let's dig a little on this one for you. So the feeling of anger comes up when you feel like somebody's not listening, or somebody interrupts you, or both?
Interrupts, yeah. Like, I think it must be a family of origin issue for me. Yeah, because typically I don't run around with a lot to say, but if I'm going to open my mouth, God damn it, you listen to me, or I'm going to walk away. Like that. That's about how much tolerance I have.
So what does people not listening to you, what is the meaning that you give that? Because remember, the problem is never the situation. The problem is always how we see ourselves in that situation. And we're always reacting to the meaning that we give the situation based on how we see ourselves.
Yeah, like I don't exist.
And so I don't exist. How about for me, I'm not important. I don't matter.
All of that.
So I don't exist. I'm not important. I don't matter. Nobody cares.
Right. Nobody does care. That was my ongoing affirmation for years and years. Nobody cares.
So this is great. So this is how you see yourself in the situation. This is the meaning that you give those situations. Now,
I'm ready to get over it.
Great. That's called willingness. And willingness is just another word for courage, because what is the fear? See, if I don't matter, if nobody cares, if I'm not important, then that's a pretty scary way to live, especially when I'm a kid. It goes to the core of, remember, what are the two core questions that face every human being throughout their lives?
Yeah. Am I safe and am I loved?
And so this goes to both. If I'm not important, if people don't care, and if I'm depending on people to take care of me and they don't care about me, or I'm not important to them, or I don't exist, this is probably pre-verbal. Maybe I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah, no. I'm there with you.
But I play one on the internet.
Yeah.
But all of this stuff is what we carry into our adult life. These are the subconscious programs that are running our lives that we're not aware of, that are causing these feelings, these reactions that we have. So let's start with two things. So let's reprogram. I'm not important. I don't matter. I don't exist. Nobody cares. Let's begin to reprogram that. And that's affirmations. That's whatever's going to work for you.
Down and dirty. Just give me the straight stuff. I can do it.
Well, so come up with some affirmations that
Oh,
affirm,
okay.
I am a valuable person. I am important to me. I care about me. I exist to me.
I think what it is I want I want to influence the other person. Does that make sense? I want to have influence that they at least give me airtime. You don't have to like me, you don't have to agree with me, but don't interrupt me. Excuse me.
Well, good luck with that one. I mean, that's the C word. Control.
Yeah.
We're trying to control somebody else so we can feel better.
Right. So I've got it bad. I'm going to keep
There's
coming back. I'm going to pass, but I hear you.
All right. Well, there's a second part of the equation. You want to hear it now, or
Yeah,
you're good?
Yeah. Give it to me.
The second part of the equation is what you said earlier, which is to, in the moment, in a non-attacking, non-angry, non-confrontational way, say, gee, you know what? I'm not finished yet. Can I finish my sentence, or can I finish my thought?
I'm not yet good at that. I can't yet do that without, because I'm at 100. I'll work on it. I'll work on.
It's just practice.
Yeah.
It's just practice.
Okay.
Find somebody and just practice. You could do it with me right now.
Okay. Don't interrupt me, Peter. Just don't do it.
Well, but that doesn't have to be that angry tone. It could just be, gee, I know it sounds like you're anxious to respond to what I'm saying, but I'm not finished yet. Can I finish my sentence or my thought?
I have to ask permission. Yeah, that's a problem. I will try.
Well, it's asking permission, but it's also setting the boundary.
That's what I need to do.
And what
anyway,
it is,
go ahead.
What it is remember, defensiveness and anger begets anger.
Right.
So when you're speaking, saying, look, this is important to me, without attacking somebody, they're much more likely to listen. And look, if the other person is really being inappropriate, you can leave the room.
That's what's happening. I just stopped trying, and it's a problem at work. And I need to find a better way than just leaving the room, because it's not working. That the other party that has zero communication skills, and it appears bringing her family of origin, like we're like sister, fighting like sisters. It's really not. It's really bad.
Well, maybe there's nonverbal communication. Like I wrote a letter.
Tons.
No, what I'm saying.
So I need to write a letter?
I'm just saying. I mean, if you really can't communicate face to face, then maybe you write a letter, an email.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Thanks, Peter. I'll let you know what my victory is next week. Thanks for the time.
But again, the key for me is to not attack them. As much as our ego wants to attack, and as much as we feel, because I also heard this, Dee, I'm just going to give you a little feedback. Can I give you a little feedback?
Yes.
A moment ago, I heard a little bit of, don't do that to me. Don't you know who I am? It was like we get offended. Whenever we talked about this last week, whenever we're offended, we're in our ego. It's not saying that what they're doing is right or good or correct. We're not condoning their behavior. People can be jerks, and worse, they can be abusive. None of this says we have to stand for somebody else's abuse. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. And we can let all of that stuff be about them when we know how to take care of ourselves. And we can have compassion for somebody who has to attack me because they feel so powerless. We only attack other people, and this is true for them as well as for us. It's my belief. We only attack other people when we're afraid, when we feel powerless, when we don't feel safe, when we don't feel lovable.
I'm sure all of that's true, and I can't fix that other person. So the best I can do is just I'm not. But you can have compassion for that if you choose to. At least understand it.
and then leave the room, or whatever you need to do. Whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves is okay. I'm not, but this is kind of like the advanced class, I think, for many of us. So, all right. Anything else, Didi? You want to say anything else?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Who else? Who else wants us to speak about our topic for tonight, or to talk about anger and fear in general, or anything we've talked about?
I was on a phone call, so I didn't hear the first part of your, of your talking and everything. But, I mean, anger is, it's nice. I'm almost feeling like going through this workshop and everything. It's like an exercise to control anger. And, and that's a good thing. I can't think of anything right now. I mean, I would explode all the time. I obviously have been changing that in the last 2 years or something like that. But, you can put all the things together and it's a great thing, instead of, going crazy. You just don't. And then once you calm down, then you try to figure out, okay, what's the problem? What am I afraid of? I think all those things, and that'll be very helpful. I just haven't put myself in that's what I think I have been doing. I haven't put myself in a situation where I have been angry lately. And I was a very angry person. So I don't know how yeah.
So what I would say is, it's not so much we want to control our anger. I mean, that's good. That's probably the first step. But how about not feeling angry in the first place? That's kind of where I'm going with all of this, because remember, we're never, ever responding to what's happening outside of us. We're responding to how we see ourselves in relation to what's happening outside of us. So as I change how I see myself, I'm telling you, I mean, I was as angry as anybody, and I certainly have my moments, but it's not like it used to be. And the only thing that's different is how I see myself. I don't see myself as powerless as I used to. I don't see myself as not being able to take care of myself. I don't see myself as a victim. I don't see as much. I don't see other people as victimizers as much. So when I change how I see myself, I change how I feel. And so for me, at least, it's not even I got to control my anger. It's I don't have to feel anger in the first place. When I do this work, when I change who I think I am, how I see myself, and when I believe I can take care of myself. Because most of the time, the fear for me comes from, I still think I'm that little 6-year-old kid who couldn't take care of himself, who didn't know how to set boundaries with other people, who didn't have the skill, who just had to take it. When other people were being unloving, I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't protect myself. I couldn't stand up for myself. I'm not that little kid anymore. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're a 6-year-old? I'm talking to myself. Do I think I'm that 6-year-old, or do I see myself differently now? It's not to say that we don't have challenges as an adult, and it's not to say that other people aren't assholes sometimes. Other people are assholes sometimes, but I'm an asshole sometimes. And it's beginning to understand that behind that is this image I have of myself, this idea, this concept of myself that says, I'm not going to be okay. I can't take care of myself. This is going to be painful, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to feel ashamed. I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm going to feel rejected. I'm going to have more evidence that I'm not worthy. When I change all of that stuff, hopefully before I get in that situation, I don't have the same reaction. It doesn't, I'm no longer as afraid as I used to be. I say, again, in chapter 4, we talked about fear. My definition of fear is an emotional response to a perception of myself as powerless and or unlovable in a given situation. When I no longer see myself as powerless and or unlovable, I don't feel fear as much. Despite the other night, I don't feel as afraid. I don't feel as, and because I don't feel as afraid, I don't feel as angry. And because I don't feel as angry, I don't lash out in the same way. So control anger, that's great, but how about not having the anger in the first place?
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. 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 So that's what it is. It's working on yourself, on a daily basis, feeling good about yourself, being bigger than you should be. Right. Right. You don't have to feel the anger. You don't have to feel the, the self-loathing or, the afraid, you just don't have to feel that way. You're strengthening your own self to get beyond the fear.
That's being bigger than we think we are in my book.
Yeah.
Now, again, in my book, pun intended.
Uh-huh.
In the next chapter, we're going to talk about boundaries. And I think boundaries are hugely misunderstood. But boundaries are the primary way that we take care of ourselves in our relationships with other people. So I have to be honest, until I really got that, it makes it very hard to feel safe in relationships with other people when you don't know how to have healthy boundaries. And so the default, because most of us never learned what healthy boundaries are or how to have them, what they mean and all of that, we default to the only thing that we have, that many of us see growing up, or, that kind of comes naturally, which is attack, anger, revenge, defensiveness, getting even, feeling victimized. The more we can take care of ourselves without all of that, the less we have those feelings of fear that lead to the anger, which leads to all the problems that many of us experience in our relationships. So we're going to spend a lot of time when we get to chapter 7 on what boundaries are, how to set healthy boundaries, what they mean. I give multiple examples, and we can actually role play that a little bit. But without that, again, maybe it's different for you guys, I don't know. But without that, it's very difficult for me to have healthy, functional relationships with other people. Because there's almost this natural conflict, even with the people that we love, even with the people in our own family. I argue that the closer we are to somebody, the more we need to have healthy boundaries with that person. Boundaries with strangers or acquaintances are easy compared to boundaries with a spouse or a child or a parent. So, and I'm not the first person. I mean, people have been talking, about boundaries and all of that for a long time. But I think I came up with a kind of very interesting, for me at least, take on the whole thing. I'm not going to tell you what that is yet. You'll have to wait till we get to chapter 7. But it's a really interesting twist on all of this. So, is that helpful, Barb?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Great. All right, good. Anybody else want to chime in on this topic or anything else we've been speaking about? All right, so we're going to play the song one more time, then we'll come back for our final goodbyes. All right, guys, so that's it for this week. Next week, we're going to continue our discussion of chapter 6. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is judgment. Judgment, condemnation, making ourselves or other people wrong. That's more the domain of the ego, survival strategy, character defect. We'll cover that next week, and then probably one more week on chapter 6, and then we'll be moving on. Anybody want to say anything else before we wrap it up? About anything?
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody. I was so looking forward to this particular workshop. I'm going to probably have to listen to it more than one time. Anger is an ongoing opportunity for healing for me. So I guess that means fear is. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Didi. Anybody else? Cynthia, did you want to say something? I see your
Just
beautiful
thank
smile.
you. It was really right on target. Thank you.
All right, great.
Looking forward to next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, too. All right, good. All right, so remember, guys, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. And I'll see you guys next week. Again, I want to hear about your celebrations and victories. Friends, you can invite your friends and cohorts and go from there. Have a great week, guys.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Have a good night.
Good night.